everybody? Welcome back to Pop Culture Warrior. Oh man, I'm excited for this one. My guest tonight is an incredible actor, best known for his film roles in the Fast and the Furious franchise, well, the first of the franchise, October Sky, as well as television roles in CSI New York and Supernatural. He's appeared in some of our favorite shows like Sons of Anarchy and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Sneaky Pete. He was also the co-host of the television series Ghost Stalkers. Really, without any further ado, let's get right into this. Everyone, please give a huge welcome to actor, producer, entertainer extraordinaire, Mr. Chad Lindberg, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Woo!
Blessed to be here tonight.
Brother, we're going to have some fun tonight. The people are hyped. Everybody's excited to have you. First question, I ask everyone the same. What is your military connection?
So I don't have any military background in my family. I do have friends that are in the military. My dad was law enforcement, so that's kind of my closest sort of, connection to, nothing, no one really in my family, but before we even begin tonight, I just had to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you to everybody who's listening and watching for their service, because if you guys aren't doing what you're doing, I'm not able to do what I do. And so it's a big thing, and I take it very seriously. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, I'm saying thank you on behalf of the audience, but we appreciate it. Thank you for being here. So obviously this is called Pop Culture Warrior, right? The first thing we want to talk about is pop culture.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, as a man within the industry, but as a person, just as a man, what do you geek out about? What do you love?
Yeah, I love that we're talking about it. I'm a huge geek. You can probably see behind me. I got the Stranger Things thing up. I got the Ghostbusters and the Batmans and the Pops here. My whole place is kind of like a vintage toy museum. I'm a kid of the 80s. I was born in 76, so I believe the 80s was the pinnacle of just everything, like Ghostbusters and everything, Back to the Future, all those things that we cared about, right? So that stuff inspired me to be an actor, and the way that movies made me feel. So they still do, and I'm a geek. I love Joker. I love all this stuff. So this is perfect for me because I love pop culture, man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can tell Back to the Future all day. I got a flux capacitor back there.
Yeah.
Man, I got a couple DeLoreans, man. You're speaking you're a man of my peoples. You're in the tribe here. You're with the right tribe.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, just because I always like to give an opportunity. I know a lot of celebrities, actors, and all that. They have charities they support or initiatives they believe in. I wanted to give you a moment. If there was anything, a law that you're pushing to see passed or anything like that, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about something that you're passionate behind.
Oh, that's nice to hear. I support Lost Limbs Foundation, and that's a foundation that my buddy Mike lost his leg, and due to some technicalities, and after that he has started a foundation to help kids be able to walk again, or get the money to legs and arms and all these things that so I support Lost Limbs Foundation. It's near and dear to my heart. They're great people, and awesome. And eventually we'll talk about it. He's connected to my paranormal world too. A lot of the paranormal community helps out with Lost Limbs Foundation. We do a lot of events, and they're good people. So
that's awesome. No, I love to hear it, man. We'll have someone in the chats tag Lost Limbs Foundation. That's fantastic.
Sweet.
And guys, we have a bunch of you watching live. If you have questions for the incredible Chad Lindberg, please put them in the chats. I can see them. We'll read them off to him, and we'll really dive into this extraordinary individual. You have such a rich back history of work. Wow, already. Wow, that was quick. From Captain Wayne in the chats. First question of the night. He says, wow, amazing work you've done, Mr. Lindberg.
Thank you.
Weird question. Do you happen to know how many of the Winchester's Impalas got wrecked in Supernatural? Just wondering.
That's a good question. So usually, like when picture cars, there's like the original car, and then they'll build replicas to crash, to shoot up. They built in Fast and the Furious. They had like 3 Jettas that they had made, the original, and then like I want to say 2 others that they could shoot. um, so I don't know because I wasn't around the Impala much. Like they kept me like in like the Roadhouse, which is like where Ash, the character I played, lived. So they didn't really bring me out of the Roadhouse. So I'm sure there is a number of Impalas that have been wrecked or, shot up or
Utilized,
whatever.
yeah.
15 years is a long time on that show. So I'm sure there was a number of replicas that were demolished in some capacity.
That's great. Like, that's a tough question, right? That's a tough question when you're not there from start to finish.
There's an answer out there somewhere.
Yeah, Google's great for that. So before we dive into your back catalog, I do like to spend a few minutes in getting to know our guests. And obviously, we asked you about your geekdom and charities and things. Tell us a bit about where'd you come from before all the acting, before all the Hollywood stuff. Where'd you come from? Your background. I mean, family. What were you like?
I appreciate that. I grew up in Mount Vernon, Washington, which is a small town north of Seattle. I had a pretty great childhood and normal. I didn't come to LA till I was, a teenager, 19. Yeah, man, me, my dad, mom, and my sister, it was just a great upbringing. I can't talk enough about how wonderful it was. And then I realized at a very young age that I wanted to act, and I knew I was good at it. And I was like, all right, I'll give this a shot. And I started in Seattle and kind of like broke into it there and ended up getting an agent there and then booking my first movie, my first audition there. And it was like, that was the start. I think I was like 17, in like high school. And then 19 came around and I was like, I'm out of here. Came to LA and then it kind of happened, which is always kind of shocking, 46 years old looking back now. I'm like, man, that's kind of crazy. It's you got to follow your dreams and sometimes they come true.
Yeah, and doing, being in your profession and continued work in your profession, that's the 1% of the 1%. Like
Exactly.
how many people have the aspirations, and it's always it's amazing, with obviously it's dedication and time and building into your craft, but it's also I can assume it's a modicum of luck and a little bit of
Sure.
a little elbow grease and whatnot. Do you have? I'm always fascinated by my guests. Do you remember, before you're like, okay, that's it, I'm gonna be an actor, I'm gonna do this thing. Do you remember maybe where you were petering and like, well, maybe I'll do this thing? Like, what was the other thing? What was the other thing you were interested in doing?
My dad was a cop for many years, and I thought at a very young age, I was like, I want to be a cop too, and then I'm like, I'm so not the guy, I don't. It takes a special kind of person to do, what so many of your viewers do and have done, and to be in law enforcement. And I just was like, that's not who I am. And I started to go on stage around high school time, and I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do. And then around the same time, there's an actor. His name's Jim Caviezel. He played Jesus in Passion of the Christ. He and I are from the same small hometown of Mount Vernon, Washington.
Wow.
And at that time, he had booked a part in Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner, and the local newspaper did this big spread. And I was like, man, I could do that too.
If he can do it, I could.
Yeah, it was just kind of like it inspired me and it kicked me in the ass. And I was like, oh, like here's somebody in my community that was like actually like doing something like that and booking like like a movie with Kevin Costner. And I was like, I could do that. I could really do that.
Oh yeah.
So I pursued it in Seattle. I always tell people, they're like, how'd you just start? How do I start acting? And I'm like, it's all dependent on your your path. You know, at the end of the day, I looked at my local newspaper and I looked in the classified ads. I don't know why I thought, oh, this is where I want to start my acting career. I looked in the classified ads, and in the back of the classified ads there was an ad for an agency called Kid Biz. And it was just like, Kid Biz looking for talent, blah, blah, blah. So I called the number and they took me in and I auditioned. I got it. And then the next day they sent me for an audition for a movie called Born to Be Wild, which is about a boy and a gorilla who like go on this big adventure. And it was filming in Seattle. It was a big Warner Brothers movie. And I ended up booking like 2 lines in it. And that was it. So like my very first shot, I ended up getting. And
that's awesome.
It kind of spiraled from there. I finished school. You know what I mean? I did what I needed to do. I worked 3 jobs. You know, I was like persistent. I'm like, no one's going to tell me no. And then I came to LA and the rest is history, I guess.
That's right. History we're going to dive into because I'm exactly. so fascinated by it. And we do have another question, and it's going to kind of tie into where I'm at here in this story. Because so your first role credited was Born to Be Wild, 1995. I've done my homework. And then again, a couple years later, 99, you're playing Odell in October Sky. Yeah. So I'm curious, and this is the fan question from Tim in the chats. He says his favorite question to go to is when your first big paycheck came in, what did you splurge on? Something that wasn't a life necessity.
What a great question. I at the time I was living in a house with some other actors and we were all kids and we were booking this like really incredible work. My friend Wes Bentley, who's now in Yellowstone, he had booked American Beauty at the time, and my buddy Brad, and all these things were happening in this house, which is a whole different conversation. Where was I going with this?
the first thing you spent, the first big money you spent.
Thank you. I'm going. Yeah, thank you. We would be booking this incredible work. And the first thing that I was splurged on was taking out my friends and celebrating. That was it. Like I was always like, I got to share it with people and the people that I love, because if you can't do that, then what good is it? You know what I mean? So we would go out to dinner. I would take everyone out to Benihana's and we would kind of like be really amazed. We were stunned that we were like making this kind of money. And it's not, I mean, that was just a different time, you know what I mean? It was just, things have changed, and it does. Sure. I've been in the industry for a lot of years. But October Sky was my first studio film, and I booked it, and do
you have any memories from that time?
It's a really cool, it's an amazing feeling, and then to be working on a true story. And then that story has actually like gone on for years. Homer Hickam is a good friend of mine who the movie's about. And, now they like show it in like science classes. And like, it's his, I am constantly blessed and surprised that I have been a part of like some really amazing projects that have, gone into the stratosphere of like, pop culture, like we're talking about. What I mean?
Stood the test of time.
Yeah, what you hope for, right? That like lightning in a bottle thing that people just like gravitate to or like speaks to them. And definitely October Sky was up there.
That's awesome.
So
do you have any
near and dear to my heart for sure?
Do you have any fond memories of being on set? Any crazy antics behind the scenes? Anything like that?
Of October Sky?
Yeah.
We were kids, like I had just turned 21 and Willie Scott had just turned 21. Jake Gyllenhaal was like 17, I think, at the time, and Chris Owen was like 15, I want to say. And we were kids, so literally we would how we would spend our nights. There was a 24-hour Walmart next to the hotel, and we filmed in we were staying in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and this small little place in Tennessee. and that's where we shot the movie for 3 months. And it was just like heaven. You know what I mean? They create this world for you, and we were again kids. You know, I was 21, but like in this industry, that's like baby. You know.
Well,
So yeah, the 24-hour Walmart was our big hit. You know.
that's awesome. So now just a short time later, right? Probably
Yeah.
one of your most well known roles, 2001. You
Yeah.
get Jesse in the Fast and the
Yeah.
Furious.
Yeah.
I'm curious, uh,
Yeah.
when you get this role, first, did you think, like, reading this and starting the production, that it would, what is this, 20 years later it would be
Yeah.
one of the biggest movie franchises of all time? Like, was there a sense of that when you
Right.
guys were making this?
So there's a lot to talk about on this question. So again, I was a baby. I think I was like 23 at the time, and at this point, I had done a good handful of stuff, right? And when you're very young in this industry, or especially back then, because social media was not around, it was like to go to Hollywood and do this without any sort of like, you know, safety, or these platforms nowadays. It was none of that. So it was just like you go and like hopefully it fucking works out. Um, so at that time, I thought, oh, I wanted to be a very serious independent actor, and I was just like taking myself very, very seriously. And a script came along called Redline. At the time, it was called Redline. And look, the script was cheesy, right? It was just kind of like I didn't see it at the time. And also, like, it was to play the computer geek, which here I says I have trust me, I'm the computer guy. All right. At this time in my life, I had already played like 2 or 3 computer guys, and I was, you know, in my mind back then, I hadn't grown into myself yet and realized what my wheelhouse was. I was not Leo DiCaprio, which I thought I was in my mind. You know what I mean? I was not that. I was this, and so I turned down the audition for Redline, which ended up being the Fast and the Furious. So my agent at the time called me, and we got in a huge fight on the phone. And she said, "Why don't you go in?" And I'm like, "I don't want to. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to do it." So we fought. She hung up the phone on me, rightfully so. And we talked again. She called me and hung up the phone. The next day, another agent called me up, and he said, "Hey man, just go in. Just see, just there's no harm in going in." So I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. It is a big movie. It's Universal. I'm stupid. Like, what are you thinking?" So I go in and I audition, and then I get the call back to go read with Matt Schultz and Johnny Strong, and they put us all together, and we read for Rob Cohen, the director, and it worked out, and I got the part like later that night, and I'm like, awesome, this is great. I'm in this cool movie, these cars. So I would, we shot the movie and it was amazing, but still I wasn't like, I wasn't registering what I had
Sure.
at all. And cut to, and just before the movie came out, my mom said, "Do you want to have a hometown premiere?" Because we did that with October Sky, and it's fun for
Sure.
family and friends. And I said these actual words. I said, "Mom, no one's ever gonna see this movie." So the movie came out, and instantly changed my life forever. And it taught me a very valuable lesson that you just never know, right?
Mm.
And I can't imagine my life without that film. I mean, I've grown up with it too, in a
Mm.
lot of ways. So it's, it taught me about fame, like hardcore fame, like, you know what I mean? Instantly,
Mm.
instantaneously, I was getting mauled in malls, restaurants, couldn't go anywhere. And I still, to this day, you know what I mean? Jesse, it's always Jesse, which is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So, and funny enough, on Vice TV, they just released Icons Unearthed,
The
Fast
docu
and
series.
Furious, which they break down the entire the entire franchise in 6 episodes, and I tell the story about how I turned down the audition, And look, I think that movie obviously found me for a much deeper reason, beyond Jesse. And man, that movie is still relevant.
Mm.
Here we are talking about it 21 years later, and then to go on and make 9 sequels. Come on, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like there's no, like, besides Star Wars or the obvious Star Treks or any of these movies,
Right.
there is, or Harry Potter, which is all expected because they're books, and we expect Star Wars to keep going. But the Fast and the Furious, how on earth did that happen?
Yeah.
Uh, there'll be 10, 10 and a half, 11, however they're going to be doing sequels, and then you'd have the spin-offs and whatnot. So it's a juggernaut, man.
That's amazing. And I'm curious. Okay, I have so many questions. So first off, like, I don't like talking about anybody's money. That's their business. But I would
Yeah.
assume the residuals because you think,
Oh, yeah.
he was just in the first one. But like the residuals are well enough that, I mean, that's a big help, I would assume, because that's a movie
Oh
that's
yeah, 100%. And
all
thank
the
God
time.
for residuals as an actor, because the ebb and flow of the industry. There is, and I have a long resume, but man, it's a lot of it's just tough work of the tough doesn't come from the work itself. It comes from, like, having to endure the journey along the way, because it's like it's hardcore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But thank God for residuals. Thank God, and thank God that we're covered for residuals. And a movie like that, like, come on, it
Yeah.
just they're always playing that thing. Always.
It's
And
a
there's
great
not,
popcorn movie.
yeah, it is. And I don't think there's one person. No, there are a few people who have never seen it, but, like, it's rare.
Right.
Or you've at least seen bits of it, because they're replaying it on USA or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, like, that it was as a franchise, as the Fast and the Furious franchise, we've seen it in a couple of the movies where main characters die. I think you were the first. you started the
Yeah,
tradition
exactly.
of people
Yeah,
dying off
yeah,
in the movie.
yeah.
But in the part 4, part 5, part 6, part 7, part 8, we see some of the characters coming back. Do you ever look back and you're like all these other guys get to come back from death? Like, where's Jesse at, man?
100%, man, 100%. And I'm glad you asked that question. A lot of people think, "Oh, I'm cool with it." It's tough, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's the one movie that, like, it's the pinnacle in my career and sort of like the changing point. And then, of course, like, when 2 came around, I was not in that. I was not in that script. You know what I mean? So you go through that death, right? Like, okay, you go through that acceptance, and then it goes to 3, and you're like, okay, whatever. It was DVD. It was a whole different time.
Right.
Then 4 comes around. You're like, 5, 6. Wow, really? 7. Oh my God. And then, of course, they have literally brought in just about everyone back
Just about
except me.
everybody.
And there's it's every time a new one comes out, and I always support. I always go watch. I love to see where it's at and where it's going and where it's gone. But there is a sting that comes with it too, because you want to continue that journey with them. You know what I mean? And who doesn't want to be in a cool popcorn movie again and, like, reprise a character? And look, also, like, people, I don't think realize, like, I'm asked every day for the past 20 years. I am asked,
When you
and
come back.
it's all out of love. Like, where are you? When are you coming back? And I'm like, talk to Vin, man. I don't know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that's constantly in my face, right? And it's, it obviously, like, they've moved on. Like, I don't hold, I've accepted Jesse's death, in Too Fast, Too Furious. All right, it's over.
In sci-fi, we call it a nexus point. It's a point in time you can't change. You can't
Exactly.
bring them back.
Exactly.
In the Marvel franchise, right? It's Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben has to die. To make Peter Parker Spider-Man, he has to die. You can't bring him back. You know,
exactly,
so
exactly.
you are Uncle Ben in the Fast and
No,
Furious
exactly.
franchise.
And I think Jesse is the audience. Jesse was the most relatable character in that movie. Jesse was the real sort of like car culture. He was the heart of the film. And
Hmm.
so when he dies, you have to like it has to be that way so you
Yeah,
feel it, and then you get excited when Vin and Paul go after Johnny Tran. You're like, yes,
yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's important.
yeah,
Jesse's death was important. However, they could bring him back if they
yeah.
wanted to.
If they needed to.
Yeah,
Now, okay. Let's play a little theoretical, right?
sure.
We're coming up on Fast X or 10, whatever you want to call it. Let's say in some sci-fi twist of fate, right?
Yeah.
Out through a portal steps out Jesse, right? He's now in the universe. But but realistically, comparing part one to where they are part 10, as real as it gets in part one, I feel like with the street racing and they're stealing, come on, they're stealing VCRs, bro. And then
We were stealing VCRs.
but part 10, where they're flying spaceships around the sun and
Yeah,
drifting the moon, like, how
yeah.
do you feel Jesse reacts to where the team is in part 10 if he shows up?
Oh man, I think there would be some hell to pay. I toyed with the idea that like Jesse's like pissed. You know what I mean? And Jesse's now coming for them. He's like on the side of like what on the opposite side of
Mm,
where they find themselves, and fucking Jesse's there, and he's just like, "What's up? You left me." You know what I mean?
mm.
But it's a hard and weather Jesse now because he's been shot. You know what I mean? He's hardcore.
Yeah. No, I
He's gonna
think
be hardcore.
that's perfect. Think Winter Soldier, right? He was
Yes.
Captain America's Bucky, and then he's captured by the enemy. He's rebuilt. He's a part cyborg now. We know in the Fast and Furious franchise, Idris Elba was damn near cyborg. So, I mean, why not, man? Bring Jesse back, and he's this
That's what I'm saying.
Winter Soldier of of the team. I love that. That'd be
Yeah.
great. God, get
Yeah.
him on the phone, guys. Guys, where's our
Yeah.
people? Get him on
Exactly.
the phone. We gotta make this happen.
Let's do.
There was a great video I saw on YouTube where just recently you were reunited with
Yeah.
your VW Jetta. What was that like being with it again after all this time?
Yeah, man. So that jet is a rebuild.
A rebuild.
I My good buddy Dom Dub on Instagram. My shout out to Dom. I found Dom on Instagram. Gosh, how many years now? I'm 4 or 5 years ago, and he had built Paul's Eclipse. He's a brilliant recreates these cars. And I saw the Eclipse, and I wrote to him, and I said, "Man, that was beautiful work." And we hit it off immediately. And I said, "Now you got to do my Jetta, dude." And he's like, "All right," in his French accent, okay. And he within 6 months, him and his team built that thing, um, built the Jetta, and it's beautiful. So I flew to Quebec, where it's at now, and where Dom lives, and they that night they revealed it to me. They had a couple of YouTubers there, and it was a very special moment because I hadn't seen anything. I hadn't seen my actual car,
Mm.
which I was reunited with like a few months later at Fuel Fest. I think I hadn't seen that in years, or any sort of like replica, let alone one that was built for me.
Right.
Out of just so that Dom and I become really really great friends, and we do a lot of cool things with that Jetta, and it's the best replica there is. It's gorgeous, but these there's tons of these car communities now, and car replica makers, that are building these cars. And look, I don't care. We all love the stars of the Fast and the Furious, but it's the cars.
It's the
The cars are
cars.
the stars of the film. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And these replicas will drive them down the highway, and people are like taking photos of these cars because it's like they know it. They know that car, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
No,
pretty neat, man. And
and
that was a really
that's so cool. I'd go to a
cool
ton
thing.
of conventions throughout the year, and you see it, like you'll see the Batmobile. You'll see the Ecto-1, the Ghostbusters car. You'll
Yes.
see
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo van and like
Yep.
DeLoreans galore. You'll see plenty of
Yeah.
DeLoreans. But yeah, like the Back to the Future, God, it's on my brain. The
Yeah.
Fast and the
Yeah.
Furious cars are, I mean, synonymous. You see one on the
Yeah.
road, you see one, you see a picture of one, you see a toy of one. I'm my 5-year-old. We're going down the Hot Wheels aisle, and you'll see
Yeah.
cars, and you'll be like, oh, that looks like Dom's car. Oh, that
Yep.
looks like Jesse's car. Like it's burned into your brain. Like you said, they are a living being within that reality. And
Yeah. Exactly.
future episodes, they're practically superheroes in and of themselves. But
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
so cool. I can't imagine what it was like being reunited with that one. Now, one last question about the Fast and Furious before
Yeah.
we move on to something
Sure.
else. Obviously, the tragic passing of Paul Walker. I mean, what
Yeah.
a hard hit. I mean, do you have any great memories? I mean, I'm sure you do with Paul that you're willing to share, maybe from the first movie
Yeah.
and just what he meant to you guys.
Yeah. Paul. Paul Walker, man. Like that guy. That guy was an extremely special human being. Um, didn't act like an actor. Didn't care about that stuff. He was just like the most genuine dude. He's everything that people want him to be and more. You know what I mean? In my opinion, we weren't close friends. I didn't. I think I had saw him maybe twice after the movie had come out. Um, but there's not really a day that goes by that I don't think about him in some capacity, or he's the glue that tied that movie together. You know what I mean? And man, he was just like the most supportive guy. Like on set, he was the guy that he wanted to make sure you were good. He was always checking in with me. How you doing, man? Don't worry about what the director said. Don't worry about it. He's just, it's okay. Um, we were all just chilling in a hotel one time, and he had gotten all these like In-N-Out burgers. And he was like, Chad, he's like, grab that burger. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. He's like, yo, dude. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll grab a burger. And you know what I mean? He was like the guy that wanted to make sure that you were just like, okay.
Mm.
And when I screeched at the end of the movie with the car, and I'd finally like brought the heat that I was needing to bring. And after that last take, the only thing I really remember is him running down the driveway towards me, and he gave me a big hug, and he was like, "That was awesome, bro." That's the kind of guy he was, man. He was just like solid, and it's shocking, right? It's still shocking to be like, he went out that way. You know what I
Suddenly,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, it just doesn't make any sense. But he's beloved. I mean, he's beloved, and it's apparent in I meet fans all the time, and his spirit just radiates off of them, and it, the love that they have for him, is felt. And I've been fortunate enough to attend a couple of Fuel Fest events and keep in contact with Cody Walker, his brother, who's an amazing soul. The whole Walker family are great people, and they're carrying on that legacy for Paul. And so, I let people know all the time that Paul Walker was just one of the greatest human beings that walked the earth.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Such a good thing for us all to remember, and a moment to reflect and say, "Hey, cherish life." It could be gone in a moment, and
It's true, so true, man. It's so true. It just takes a second, and we could be gone in that moment, and it's absolutely true. And so, right, we gotta just live the moment
that's
and
why we're
enjoy
here,
it.
man. We're
Exactly.
enjoying it while we can. That's what we got to
Exactly.
do. And obviously, a lot of veterans out there. We, as Paul was your brother in arms in the movie industry, in the franchise, we lose brothers in combat and in service and sometimes out of service, and it's a reminder for us all to reflect and not to bring down the mood, but to just reflect and live our
That's real
best
stuff.
lives.
Yeah,
We have to honor those, to remember them. We live our best lives for those that
exactly,
can't.
exactly.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
Duke, have a question from the chat
yeah.
regarding any of your property or your movies and TV shows. Have you kept any cool props from any of the movies or shows?
Man, I wish that I could say yes. I wish, man, maybe some baseballs from the rookie. Maybe, gosh, I had, I had been given the mullet from Supernatural, um, on season 2, and then they killed me off, as Hollywood loves to do. And then they brought me back for season 5, and so luckily I had the mullet, so I brought the mullet back. So I don't have the mullet anymore.
Mm.
Uh, so no, I don't. I wish that I could be like, oh yeah, I've got that. And nowadays, like, man, everything's on lockdown, and
Yeah,
it's never like a thought to like take this or take that. You know,
sure.
um, man, but I wish that I did. Wouldn't
If
that be cool?
if
Like
you
some
if you got the chance to pick something you could keep from one of your past works, what would you
wow.
go back and get?
Wow, the Jetta.
The Jetta. I was gonna say it's got to be the Jetta.
The Jetta, but probably like the Jesse outfit. Like
Mm,
just like something I can like put in a case or something, or just I would say the costumes are kind of fun.
yeah,
Um,
that's
man,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, we'll go with the Jetta, like it was ever mine to begin with, because
Right.
it wasn't. So,
Why not? You say they got a bunch of stunt ones. Yeah, one of them.
yeah, exactly.
They lose track of one. It's fine. Okay, so speaking of Supernatural,
Yeah,
you played Ash. Doctor Badass himself.
yeah.
What was that experience? I mean, I know you did 5 episodes on Supernatural. What was that experience like coming into? I mean, obviously, you came in early, but an established franchise doing those 5 episodes and then to come back later and also see how far it's gone. Like, what are your thoughts on all that?
Another one of those things that have like surpassed like my expectation, and has gone into the stratosphere of like fandom,
Mm,
right? Like ultimate fandom. Like, Supernatural is a very special in a different way for me, because it um well, first I came in at a very early time where it was still trying to find its footing, I
mm,
believe. And so they had created this roadhouse, and it worked, but kind of, I think, also didn't work in that time. So they kind of like, they were going to make us regulars at the time, which was super cool, but it just didn't quite work out. I knew right away when I got the audition that I was going to book that show. I knew that character, I knew it. And working with those two guys, Jared and Jensen, two of the nicest guys in the world, and one of the most fun sets I think I've ever been on. Uh, and then of course they killed me off, which they love doing. Twitter was kind of like a new thing around that time, and I remember sort of leading a brigade of like fans to try to get me back on the show, and they made a lot of noise, and they did, and the producers heard it, and they did bring me back on the show for season 5. So the reason I was back on season 5 is because of the fans,
mm,
100%. And but then from there, like, obviously the show, I think around that time, really took off.
mhm.
Of course, right? When
Yeah.
I leave, things love to take off. Uh, and But the show had sort of like created this whole different thing, and it was going in this crazy direction, and fans loved it. Um, but what happened for me was a lot of the conventions, so the
Mm,
supernatural conventions are a thing of themselves, and one of the greatest fun things that I ever get to do for this show is to go and travel with the supernatural cast and do these conventions. And because of that show, I've gotten to travel the world. It's insane. Some of these conventions, it's like Beatlemania, and I'm not even like kidding. You know what I mean? It's like it's fascinating to witness and be a part of.
Mm.
Like all over the world, I mean, you name it. I've been there because of Supernatural, and and the Supernatural fans are very special in that they really care. Like they really, they've been there for me, like through hard times, good times.
They're
I'm
passionate
very.
fans.
Oh man, it goes beyond Ash. It goes beyond any of that. It's a very. I just love them tremendously. They know that, and again, I get to travel the world because of that show. Even though I'm not on it anymore, or of course not anymore. But I did 5 episodes out of how many, and and to wear a mullet. I mean, come on, to wear a mullet on a show, man, you can't go wrong there.
Very true. Very true. So, switching gears,
Yeah.
2010, you were in I
Oh yeah.
Spit on Your Grave,
Oh
which
yeah. We're gonna go there. I like it.
phenomenal. Phenomenal. What do you remember at that time? Was that a switch for you? Was that, like going into the horror genre? Was that something you were excited about or iffy on?
It's funny again. Like I love really dark stuff. I do. I love exploring that, especially as an actor. Like for me, I love kind of going there. And I remember reading this fucking script, and it was called Day of the Woman. Now, I hadn't heard of anything prior to this thing, anything. I didn't know it was even really horror. I was just like, I read it, and I was like, oh my God, like I've got to like audition for this, but not for this character that my manager at the time had sent me out on, which did not make any sense. And I was like, I resonate with Matthew, and I've got to do it. So I ended up booking this movie, and because the material was just so crazy, and I ended up booking it. And then, of course, then I decided that I wanted to do some research on it, like, and then I realized it was a cult horror classic remake. They didn't tell us it was a remake at the time of anything. It was just like, this thing's called Day of the Woman, deal with it. And there was no, and then I was told it was a remake. So then I did the research, and I realized that this movie had a serious cult following, and that the original was so. I think it was Roger Ebert who wrote this like review of the movie. Said, "Do not go see this movie. It's the most disgusting, reviling piece of garbage you've ever seen. Don't go see this movie." Well, what happens when you tell somebody, don't watch this movie? Everyone's going to see it. Mm-hmm. And it became this thing. And I remember like watching it in my house at the time, and I'm turning down the volume because I'm like, oh my God, what will my neighbors think listening to this thing? And then we made the remake, and it was probably, and I tell people, probably my favorite thing I've ever done as an actor, because it was truly twisted and dark, and like to explore that with 4 or 5 other actors, and to have a trust for those scenes that were like epic, and I thought it was I thought the movie ended up being beautiful, and it was well done. It was eerie. It was creepy. It looked gorgeous. The cast was just right. I think it just came out great. And of course, it's a very controversial movie. Like, mm-hmm. It's a very controversial movie. A lot of people have very, very strong opinions about it, and I invite that. Yeah, right? It's a crazy film.
No, it's true. And it's funny. I was just having this conversation with my co-host earlier, in that when you do something, acting or whatever, I kind of look at it like wrestling, in that whether you're the good guy or the bad guy, the love thing or the hated thing, you want to make noise. You want people to have an opinion on it.
Right.
So like when you say, it's a polarizing thing, some people hate it, they love it. but like, that's kind of a good thing, right? Like
Yeah,
it fosters that discussion and that like that passion in it, versus something comes out and you're like okay.
exactly. Exactly. It's true. It's true. And I sort of gravitate towards things that like have a little fire, you know, if I'm able to be a part of something like that. So, you know, I don't know. I'm hoping something kind of hot and controversial comes back around my way because, you know,
Oh yeah.
I enjoy
Yeah,
it.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So we're running short on time, and I mean, you like. There's so much more I'd love to talk to you about, but
Man.
we'll give you a couple more questions, and then we'll let you scatter off. I do want to mention your show, Ghost Stalkers,
Yeah, I
because
was
you
talking about
co-hosted a show. I
yeah.
mean, I can't as an actor, like you obviously you're into the paranormal stuff. You like
Yeah.
that stuff. What was it like? Because people watch this stuff and they go like, are they are they really doing it?
Right,
Are they
right.
really scared? Are they really
Yeah.
so give us some of that behind the scenes stuff.
Totally, man. So I from a very young age, my earliest paranormal experience was living in a haunted house with my family, and things had gotten so bad that we were all sleeping in the living room. And I remember, I remember one night, all the pots and pans flew out of the cupboard, and
Jeez.
I was with my sister and my mom, and we walked in there, and my mom said, "That's enough," and yelled at them. Or it was a lady who had died in the house, and she was very upset because her husband had been kicked out um, of that house, and we moved in, and not because of us, just because of circumstances.
Sure.
So the lady that died there was very upset, and she threw the pots and pans out of the cupboard. I'll never forget that. And but we never really spoke about it, right? We kind of like just kind of like kept it to ourselves for years, and it was like never really discussed. But then like this pull towards the paranormal or all these crazy things started to like really interest me. You know, throughout the years, I loved watching the ghost shows and whatnot. You know, I all this stuff. And then probably around that time or prior to like when Stalkers came along, I had started watching Ghost Adventures at the
Mm.
time, and I rather than going out on Friday nights, you know, in LA, I would literally stay home and like study these guys as much as I could, and eventually they had me on their show because I contacted them, and they very graciously had me on their show. And the first place that they sent me to was a rundown abandoned hospital at the time called Linda Vista Hospital in LA. And they had me on the show. I ended up getting scratched that night, and it was a very profound thing for me. That was the beginning of my paranormal excitement and journey. And fast forward, you know, I would go out and do all these ghost hunts, and I started getting invited to all these cool places to go investigate. And then Ghost Stalkers came along, who was produced by Nick Groff, who was in Ghost Adventures, who I'd met through Ghost Adventures. And Ghost Stalkers is a show on Destination America, and they had sent me and this gentleman named John Tenney, who's one of my favorite people in the world. And we both had near death and death experiences, and that was sort of the basis of the show. And then they would send us to these fucked up locations, and I'd go in one night alone, and then John would go in one night alone with two cameras and a flashlight, and I'd be in there for about 6-7 hours by myself, and it was the most horrific, horrifying, life-changing experience ever for me, and there were, of course, a lot of people that were like, first of all, if you can't feel the genuine organic fear that's coming off of my body, then you're really not paying attention because I was fucking scared. Um, but a lot of people would be like, oh, he's acting. And I'm like, well, first of all, I have no interest in doing this as an actor because this is far more interesting to me than acting in Hollywood. And you know what I mean?
Hmm.
That has its own thing, right? And that's fascinating in its own respect. But let's get down to like the real shit that's going on around us that we don't give credit to, man. There's a lot of weird things going on in this world. You know what I mean? I mean, the list is long, right? We got aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, whatever you want to go with. There's a lot happening. Um, and people are too busy with their emails and their, you know, you know what I mean. So I think I tell people that were
questioning.
telling me that I was acting, I say, I'm a great actor, but I'm not that good. If you can't feel the organic fear coming off of my body, I just have no interest in acting that stuff because it's real, because it's absolutely 100% real. So I can say on our show, you know, the crew would shoot us during the day and they would leave at night, and then I'd be stuck there and I would have to go in. And I'm always glad that I did. We caught a lot of amazing stuff. But you know, the paranormal for me is kind of like my it's kind of like my how I find the universe and God, you know what I mean? Because I've experienced a lot of weird shit, and that begs the question, well, what else is there? If that exists, then what else is there? You know what I mean? And there's always an experience that we all can say or look back on and be like, well, even if you don't believe, be like, you ever had an experience? And then people might be like, no. And then about 30 seconds later, they're like, well, there was this time. So,
well, let me tell you, sir, I'm in awe of you because I'm a person that was trained to hunt in the night. I was trained to go into some of the most inhospitable, behind enemy lines in the darkest of night, a target on my back, no problem. Didn't bat an eye. I could not do what you did on that show. That is fucking terrifying. I would never in a million years. So I tip my hat to you. I bow to you. You're a braver man than I am any day.
no, but you know, I appreciate you saying that, but you're a braver man than I am because I could not imagine doing what that's real stuff, man. You know what I mean? So like, I could never do what you do, and that's real shit. You know what I mean? So
Hey, they're
thank you.
humans. They're humans on the other end of that.
But it is terrifying.
Not ghouls and spirits and things.
And the weird creepy crawlies, man. I mean, they're you know what I mean? Like there are things in this world that like I have seen, I have experienced, and I know everybody, most everybody in this field of you know, the celebrity ghost hunter, everybody in this field, and all of them have so many crazy stories, and they're not bullshit. You know what I mean? So it's like I tell people, just come out with me. I do ghost hunts. Just come out with me, and I'm very confident that I can take a skeptic and turn him into a believer by the end of the night.
We'll see some shit. I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
Okay, couple more quick questions.
Yeah, man.
What's your, you know, because I know you do a lot of conventions and appearances and things. What's the craziest fan interaction you've ever had? Tell me a wild story.
Oh, I got one. This is good. So it kind of ties into the paranormal.
Right.
So a lot of my fans know I love the paranormal. And this was a supernatural convention. Oh, man. Around Ghost Stalker time. So maybe like, you know, whenever that show came out, maybe like a year after, right?
2014, 2015.
And
okay.
I'm doing this Q&A on stage. And there's like 600 people watching. It's a big auditorium full of people. And the fans come up on the side of the stage and they ask questions. And this one girl comes up. She's like, "Hey, I've got this thing for you. I think, you know, this will help you in your paranormal journeys." And I'm like, "Okay, And I'm on stage, so I kind of like have to kind of like accept this thing. So she comes up and she hands me this box. And I'm like, "Okay." So, all right, I kind of look at it and I put it away. And I'm like, kind of like, okay. So I go back to the room after this, and I'm like haunted by this thing, and I'm like, what the fuck did she give me? And I open it up, and in this box is a skeleton head, right? With like a little cap on it, like with some stuff in it. I don't know what it is. A rune, a 50-cent piece, and like a little like box of like looks like powdered stuff. So I asked my sister, who's into this stuff with me, I'm like, "What do I do?" She's like, "Circle it in salt, first of all." So I did, right? But then she's like, "Find out exactly what she gave you." So I somehow found her online on Twitter, and I wrote her a message. I'm like, hey, can you let me know exactly what you gave me? Lo and behold, God damn it, she had given me remains of a soldier. Not
Oh,
cool. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I believe it was remains of her dead father. I want to say a couple of other things, and then some like stuff in that skeleton like head that I was like, no, 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 bad news. So I was horrified by this. And first of all, that is not okay. It's not okay in any realm. That's not okay. So before I left the event, I went to the backwoods and I did a proper burial for the soldier. I did a proper burial for all that stuff, and then I took that real like weird skeleton head and I threw it over my back, and I didn't look back. So that was one of the top, all time sort of crazy fan experiences, was being handed remains.
so okay, let's public announcement, PSA here, guys. No matter how much you love someone and their roles, don't give them dead people. Don't.
Don't do it. It's not a good look.
Wow, man, I was gonna.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
she asked me to sign her butt, or she gave you dead man. Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah. And some other things that I was like, I don't even want to know. So
Wow.
it was a busy room that night when I tried to sleep. You know what I mean? And I had that thing in my room. And I was like, mm-mm. It creeped me out.
Whoa.
It creeped me out, man. But
That'll.
I gave it the respect that it deserved, and I buried it and said my piece. And I'm like, this is not for me. That's not cool. So, that was a whole fan experience. But I've had a lot of interesting things. Fame
Sure,
keeps you on your toes. It
sure.
can be a double-edged sword, right?
The
But
good
it
and the
keeps you on
bad.
your toes. You get a lot of love. You get a lot of like interesting things too.
Let's be honest. A lot of weirdos out there, man. A lot of weirdos.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's the wild, wild west. You don't know, especially in social media now, right?
Oh man,
You
you
don't
gotta
know.
you gotta sell merch, man. It's just like, don't give me dead men. Don't give me dead people.
Just don't
Uh,
do it. Just don't do it. But it's a great story.
oh man, that's wild. So speaking of merch, we're gonna let you go here, but I happen to know you have a website where you can buy really cool limited edition stuff signed by you. I mean, do you want to plug it real quick? Because I think it's so cool
Good,
that like
man.
people can reach out and get stuff from you.
I appreciate that. I do a lot of TikTok signings actually. So I'll go on live on TikTok and I'll do like a personal convention for people. And I have a website. It's called chadsjoint.com. Very easy, Chad's Joint. And I put a lot of cars on there, like stuff that people want from the Fast and the Furious. And I sign a lot of Jettas. I sign supernatural stuff. I like I said, man, I'm a geek at heart, and I understand what that means, and to receive something, and I also I shout people out
Hmm.
personally online when they get something, and I sign it for them and make it special. Because I love getting that stuff, and when I get a signature of somebody that I love, I'm like, oh my god, that's the coolest thing in the world. So I love giving that back. It helps me out too, and it's a blessing. So yeah, Chad's Joint.
Yeah, no, I can personally attest. I've watched a couple of your live signings on TikTok. You
Yeah,
make it entertaining. It's true. I mean, it sounds like I'm shilling and I'm selling out here, but the reality is like I love going to conventions, and a big part of the convention experience is getting to meet the people that you idolize in
yeah,
movies and TV, and getting those signatures and getting that collectible item, and like, oh my god, they reached out to. So you bringing that, because let's say I live in the middle of, I don't know, Idaho, and there's no
right,
big conventions near me. Like,
right.
you get to reach into people's homes and bring the convention experience to them. I think that's so fucking cool, man, of you to
I
do.
appreciate that, man.
I enjoy
Yeah,
it. I've
it's
seen a
very,
couple of them.
thank you. That means a lot, and I've been hearing that a lot lately. That people just enjoy it and just enjoy kind of watching. So that means a lot to me. I just from one geek to another, man. We love that stuff, right? We love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm gonna get with you on the side because I'm gonna order some stuff to put in the. I gotta have you add you
Yeah,
to the
no,
collection, man.
I'll send you some,
I
brother.
gotta
I'll
I
send
gotta
you. I'd
add
be
you.
honored to be on the shelf. I'd be honored to be on the shelf.
Yeah, man, you'll be a part of the background forever.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Last thing we got to do before we let you go is plug your socials, man. Where can people follow you?
Oh,
Do you want to promote anything that people can find you? Anything you got coming up? This is your moment, man.
awesome. I appreciate that, man. I do a lot of Twitter, a lot of Instagram and TikTok. I think that's like where people can find me most. And it's just Chad Lindberg on Twitter and Instagram, and then real Chad Lindberg on TikTok. And that's where the fun is. And then I would say right now people can watch Icons Unearthed. They just did the second episode on Vice TV. And I think they're releasing it on YouTube as well, so people can check it out if they don't have Vice TV. There are 4 more episodes left. I happen to narrate all the episodes, which is very cool as well. That was a nice little honor that I got to do. And then next month, there'll be something that I'll be able to talk about that I've had under my wing for about a year and a half of NDA heaven,
Mm,
and so that'll be cool. And you know what? Hopefully, if I'm able to come back, we'll talk about what that was going to be because it fits in the
absolutely.
realm of geekdom.
First of all, you are a friend of the show forever. You are welcome back
Thank
whenever
you.
you damn well please. You come on through,
Thank
and I'll keep an eye on your stuff so that we can share it and we can publicize it when it's announced. Let us know. We'd love to hit you in the chats. We've already posted Chad's joint up there so people can follow the link and get to the stuff. You know, we got you, brother. We got you.
Thank you, man.
With that, I'm gonna give you the last couple seconds here. I'll let you say goodbye to the audience, and then we'll toss it to a break.
Awesome, dude. So, yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for your audience for having me on. It's a true pleasure. And again, just like thank you for doing what you do. It allows me to do what I do. And I, I just appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody here so much. So, thank
Awesome,
you.
man. Awesome. Now we appreciate
Yeah.
it. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the incredible part 1 of Chad
Part
Lindberg
one.
because we got to have him back in the future and talk more crazy stories because I bet he's got a ton more. All right, guys, we're going to toss to a quick break. I'm going to go say bye to Chad, and we'll be back with more show right after this. Shut